How's it going, everyone? Mega Man here to talk about some matchup tech between Highlander and Gladiator, as well as some playstyle options for both heroes involving punishes and counters to each other's moves. There's also going to be a link to a spreadsheet in the description. This has the damage value of every attack, the speed of every move, and much more. I highly recommend you guys check that out as you're watching the rest of this video. The first bit of tech to know is that Gladiator's skewer off of the deflect is not guaranteed against Highlander. As long as Highlander can follow up with a heavy attack after his deflected attack, the armor he gets from his heavy attack will trade with the skewer. This is very favorable for Highlander since the skewer only does about 5 damage from the initial impact. Another option against the deflect is to switch to offensive form and dodge the skewer. You can then follow up with an offensive light attack for 10 damage. And in some situations you can also get a kick after the dodge, and of course you get the guaranteed heavy attack afterwards for 30 damage. Although it is important to know that the kick does miss sometimes. To avoid it missing, you just have to dodge in the same direction as your deflected attack came from. Now, because of Highlander's options against the deflect, Gladiator should only deflect attacks when Highlander is exhausted or if he does a heavy finisher, as he can't fast float into offensive form afterwards, making the skewer guaranteed. The next bit of tech involves Highlander's caber toss, which is that Gladiator can parry the heavy follow-up. Now, this isn't Gladiator specific tech, as every assassin can parry the heavy attack, but it's still important to know in the matchup. Now, from my testing, you could definitely parry the heavy attack every time, although the timing is rather strict. You basically have to parry the moment the attack would hit you, whereas normally you could parry early and it would still connect. I would recommend practicing this if you play an assassin, as this can really swing the fight in your favor. Now, I also tried to parry the heavy attack after the kick, but that seems to be guaranteed. And although it doesn't have as good of tracking as the toss does, it's still good to know that at least one of his unblockables does guarantee a heavy attack against assassins. Now, there is a way to avoid the heavy attack from being parried. Highlander just has to do a kick after he tosses them. This way the heavy is guaranteed. Of course, this only needs to be done if the opponent knows that they can parry the heavy, and since not everybody knows about this, you might not ever have to use it, but it's still important to know. For standard punishes against Gladiator, Highlander can dodge and Guardbreak the skewer. The most damage he can get after a Guardbreak is a zone attack for 25 damage. As for the toe poke, it's the same deal, dodge and Guardbreak punish. Just be careful with your dodges, because if you try to dodge the toe poke too early, you will get caught by the skewer. The zone attack is definitely the hardest move to punish, since you have to avoid the shield bash first, and parrying the follow-up attack can leave you out of range for a punish. So your best option here would be to go for a crushing counter-strike. As for the punishes against Highlander, Gladiator can dodge both the toss and the kick, then follow up with a dodge attack for 20 damage. And he can deflect a heavy finisher for a guaranteed skewer and a dodge attack for around 40 damage. So I just want to talk about how quick Highlander's offensive side dodges are. They recover in 400 milliseconds. That is ridiculously quick for a dodge. He can also cancel any of his defensive attacks into the dodge, which gives him basically zero recovery. I feel like these dodges could definitely play a big role in this matchup to compete with Gladiator's speed. And I also want to mention how the offensive light attacks have 2 ranges to them. Now, normally when you hold forward while attacking, you get a bit more reach on your attacks. But for the offensive light attacks, holding left or right will give you an insane amount of range. It's like twice as much as the normal attack. This could also help Highlander compete with Gladiator's speed and range. Combining the dodges and the light attacks, I feel like Highlander could play a bit of hit and run style to put Gladiator on the defensive. Now, I definitely feel like the fight is more even when I'm in my offensive stance, because I'm not punished as often, as I can weave in and out of the fight very quickly with the dodges, and I can compete with the speed and range of Gladiator's light attacks. I actually kind of like the fight like this. It's very fast paced and requires a lot of counterplay. As for Gladiator's playstyle against Highlander, I don't think he really has to change much. Just don't go for as many deflects since Highlander can punish them, and avoid all his unblockables since they're pretty slow. And you know, just do Gladiator things. Although I will say that if you're not using the zone attack against Highlander, use it more. It is really difficult to deal with, and it stops most of Highlander's pressure. It also goes through his armor attacks, and it's really hard for Highlander to punish. It's just a really good move against Highlander. So my thoughts on this matchup are that Gladiator will win most of the time, but Highlander definitely has the tools to compete with him. The main reason I think that Highlander loses is mostly because that his stats are a bit too low. Like, Gladiator's health is 120, and Highlander's is 125. Gladiator is nearly as fast as Peacekeeper, and Highlander is around the same speed as Shigoki. Gladiator uses less stamina on his attacks, and he has an increased stamina bar, while Highlander uses a ton of stamina in his offensive stance, but doesn't have any more stamina to compensate. So either Gladiator has too much stats, or Highlander has really low stats. In my opinion, I think his health needs to be at least 120, which would make him similar to Warlord. You know, they're both characters that have armor on their heavy attacks, and they're both meant for trading. And I also think that his side heavies need to do more than 25 damage. Like, think about Highlander's side heavy, and think about Warlord's side heavy. Warlord's does more damage, and his sword is like a fifth of the size of Highlander's weapon. It just does not make any sense to me. So Highlander just needs a bit more stats, and he would definitely be able to compete with the other top characters, including Gladiator. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Be sure to comment on which matchup video you would like to see next. I want to thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you guys in my next video.